So it is better to be a human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied. Do you agree? How many of you would rather be a happy pig than a dissatisfied human?
I'd rather be a happy pig.
Seriously?
I think it depends on what kind of person you ask. Someone who's gone through a lot of hardship over the years and will probably be after being a satisfied pig.
Or like
You
when
see
I'm
a
at
lot
the
of-
fair and I see the pigs lying in their little pens and they look pretty darn happy, actually. But I'm aware that right above their heads is the price that they've been awarded per pound. I know that means that at the end of the fair,
Yeah.
they're going to be sliced up into pounds, right?
At least they lived a meaningful life.
Is it meaningful?
Well, meaningful,
Yeah,
right?
meaningful to me. I'm eating them.
They-
Well, but
They
they're
can live
not
in
eating
content.
one another. You know,
They
they're
do.
well.
Not.
It's probably not the best. Yeah.
I saw that as kind of like, is it better to live like a content, boring life as opposed to
I'm here for a good time.
an ups and downs kind of life, but, you know.
Well, that's where Socrates comes into play, because the quote continues on.
Better be
It says,
Socrates.
"Better to be Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied." So these are
So better to live a content, better to live a discontent life than to live a lie.
so you're getting
Yeah,
a
this is
higher
reasonable.
education. You're going to be more aware of the complexities of all of the problems that we have. That's very frustrating. It makes it very difficult for you to be essentially happy, knowing all of the things, all the problems, and all the complexities in life that you know. And yet out there are plenty of people that are unaware of all those complexities, all those problems, and, well, they say happiness is bliss, right? Or bliss, ignorance is bliss, right? Which, if you're thinking in terms of Fort Bliss, Texas, no, that's not. Fort Bliss? It's Texas, right?
I think it is.
Yeah, it's a terrible place. You know, you eat dirt there, right? But you get the idea, right? There are folks that are happy, that are basically blissfully ignorant. Hakuna Matata, ain't no passing craze. Hakuna Matata for the rest of your days. It means no worries, right? Right? So,
I think the ignorant are more likely to find bliss and contentment
Right.
than the other.
but
where-
what do you think is a more significant life? The one where
Oh,
you're
certainly.
aware of things?
Yeah.
But it's harder to make you happy because, well,
I guess the way I look at it is, yeah, obviously I'd like the more difficult life where I'm aware of things and everything, but I can completely emphasize with people who want to be content and happy, and like I get that too. You know? There's nothing wrong with being.
I could make that the quiz question
Well, why
too.
can't you have both?
Yeah, that's the kind of the thing. It's hard to find
Most
someone
people
who's truly
chase
content.
knowledge for happiness, I think.
So, and so in a typical college environment, one of the things that college does to people is it will make you less likely to believe in the things that you believed when you were a kid. And instead you'll recognize the more complex nature of all of those kinds of beliefs. Right? But as you do that, you're going to be disappointed because a lot of the things you believed as a kid kind of gave you the sense of what will make your life happy. But as you get more aware of how complex everything is, you're going to be less likely to think that that kind of living is going to make you happy. You realize, no, it doesn't work. You might be happy for a moment, tomorrow is another day. You know, our normal kind of status quo is neither happy nor sad. It's kind of just in the middle. You know, in fact, if you're whatever it is you're doing, you get used to it, so that you can actually be used to being a prisoner of war. I mean, we could talk about individuals that were prisoners of war and find out that, you have ups and downs even in that kind of an environment, right? Well, if that's the case, then the goal of the utilitarian is the greatest happiness of the greatest number. Boy, that is so ambiguous. Well, I mean, if you think about it, in a situation where you're recognizing that morality is progressing and that our understanding of what is good for us may change, so that what we think is good for us today will either not be what's good for us, or that we'll have a more complete understanding of what will make us happy later. I mean, we could even think about how science does this. I mean, when I was a kid, they refined white sugar. I mean, white sugar is refined sugar, right? They started putting it on all sorts of things, adding it, and that got kids to eat it. Oh, that was great. They would eat Frosted Flakes or corn flakes they didn't like, right? So you eat a better breakfast, right? They started putting it in milk, right? Instead of drinking milk plain, you started drinking Nesquik or chocolate milk or whatever. And most of the biggest ingredient, even strawberry milk and stuff, was sugar, right? And then they came out and did a study. It was funded by Ted Kennedy, actually, through the government. I mean, it was, he was in charge of the committee, right? And he had a funding of a scientific study to see what happens if you eat too much sugar. And I think they gave like 5 pounds of sugar to a mouse in a day or something, and the poor mouse ended up with like cancer or something. And it turned out that refined sugar was bad for the mouse. They dumped it in the sugar vat and then they couldn't find it again. So it was, I don't know.
Is this the next? No, it's just another one.
So they end. That was. Oh, thanks for that, Matt. But you get the idea. You do a study if you're trying to determine that this is bad for you. Wow! And so everybody started buying a sugar substitute, which just, by the way, happened to be something that Ted Kennedy had invested heavily in. Right? So the value of sugar suddenly plummeted, and the value of the pink stuff went up.
The pink stuff.
Right, whatever it was. And everybody started buying that. And Ted Kennedy, of course, made a fortune, right?
He's such a great guy.
And by the way, once that happened, he immediately sold all of his shares in the pink stuff and bought sugar, which, by the way, was really, really low, right? Then the same committee that Ted Kennedy was in charge of, governmental committee, decided to test the pink stuff. And guess what? It turns out it's cancer forming. So everybody started selling their shares of the pink stuff and went back to buying sugar, which turned out to be, of course, what he owned a lot of shares in. So he made a lot of money.
Again.
But I think it went back and forth 2 or 3 times, and each time the Kennedys made more and more money over this.
What
So.
happened to that family?
There's still, no, there's still plenty of Kennedys. One of them's going to be running for Senate or something
A bunch of crooks.
in Massachusetts. Well, the grandfather was the one that imported Scotch during the Prohibition era, and that's how they got rich in the first place.
Martha's Vineyard.
So that's kind of interesting, I suppose. But so when we're talking about sugar, is sugar good for you?
Yeah.
No,
No, we're fine.
not in large amounts.
How about honey? Is there a sweetener that is good for us? I mean,
Not in large amounts.
aspartame will kill dogs. So
Yeah.
do not give dogs anything you're eating that has aspartame in it, right?
As a rule of thumb, it's good to just cut as much sugar out as possible, which is nigh on impossible. But
Well, I mean, we used to do that with like eggs. Don't eat eggs; they're bad for you. The cholesterol. Oh, it turns out that there's good cholesterol in eggs. You should eat more eggs. No, wait a minute, but it gives you this, and then so now you're.
fat's bad for you now. Fat's in
There's
again.
goods and bads in
a lot of things.
On
Question
Dr. Oz, like, they
how do you
said-
want to die?
Dr. Oz.
Dr. Oz, like, he was like saying that peanuts cause cancer, and then like
Penis causes
not
cancer.
peanuts, but peanuts.
Oh, peanuts.
Yeah,
Oh,
with a P. Let's not
sorry.
erase that.
Let me erase that.
Okay.
Penis cause cancer.
Peanuts cause cancer?
Yeah, but then like a couple weeks later, I mean, like I used to have no life, and this is middle school, so like the only thing I
You
did was
must
watch
watch
TV.
Oz.
Yeah, yeah. I used to watch all the like the talk show. Host for moms. Yeah. But,
Well, you get the idea. How about coffee?
But like the next week, though, I mean, they
Are
said
we
it
supposed to drink coffee?
gets rid of cancer.
Well, caffeine is another habit-forming thing, and it's not really great for you.
Soda?
Horrible. Don't
It
drink any
tastes
soda.
good, so it must be good.
Soda's the number one thing to cut out.
Soda
There's
is.
just no such thing as good soda.
Alcohol.
Well, that would be the number one
It
thing.
makes you happy.
Soda.
I would
It
suggest
doesn't make you happy.
soda,
Makes you
because
happy.
alcohol can have some beneficial qualities. Soda has zero beneficial qualities.
That's enough for us to realize that, you know what, the real decision is out yet. Probably there won't be one. You go to a dietitian and, you know, what they tell you this year will not be the same as what they tell you next year.
Pretty safe.
Just don't
They
eat
just
starve yourself
changed.
to death.
They
Drink
just
water.
changed, didn't they? The pyramid of foods that you're supposed to eat.
They got rid of the pyramid.
Oh,
I thought.
have any of you watched Don't Hug Me
Now
Upstairs?
it's a plate.
Hook me up, what?
People that are fat feel better about themselves.
Well, I thought that they changed the pyramid, and so that turned out to change like the school menus.
Yeah. I thought they just did away with the pyramid completely.
They did.
Yeah.
You need like
They
the
would-
plates, like you need half the plate to be meat, a quarter of it to be vegetables, a quarter to
Right.
be.
They turned it into
Not
a
half.
pie chart.
Yeah.
Because pie.
Yeah.
Half?
I have a hard time believing the half
That-
meat.
no way.
Speaking of which,
He's a
Happy Pie
vegetarian,
Day
so he
is
doesn't
coming
know.
up.
But that sounds.
I got in trouble. I got in trouble yesterday
That sounds
with
like
my
me.
own emotions. I was seen to be one of those unsavory characters shopping late at night. And walked past a cheesecake in the car's deli, and just decided to buy a slice because it was a much better dinner than actually cooking something. But of course, you know how lights get real bright during the evening time, and somebody was driving around, and I was parked in kind of a more conspicuous spot. And these people turned around, did big bright lights.
Oh, because you
shining
were
on my
sitting in
truck.
your car eating your.
And I was, didn't
Cheesecake.
even make it out of the parking lot with the cheesecake, And they both looked at me and then looked away like, this guy over here. I went to the gym.
I think that's a criminal offense, isn't it? Eating cheesecake in the car's parking lot at night.
Who does that, right?
Yeah. I think it's legal in the
Cheesecake is
afternoon,
my-
but by late at night, I don't think you're allowed
Late at
to.
night, man, that's.
It's called
that's
loitering
felony.
or something.
Yeah.
You should get arrested for sitting in the car's parking lot by.
Overly sensitive cheesecake petitioners.
Okay. Well, so that's only one aspect of Mill, being a utilitarian. What is moral progress? How do you have a moral system that's designed to account for moral progress? So the greatest happiness of the greatest number. Do you need rules to do that? There's one type of utilitarianism called rule utilitarianism. So that if you can establish that certain rules will always be good for you to follow, then you can be a utilitarian, but establish rules that will be the best ones to follow. But in general, utility is a system based on consequences. So what happens is you end up becoming a consequentialist. And that means that the ends justify the means. So you could actually do evil things if the end result is a good set of things. So okay, if we're going to blow up this village, to kill that Taliban leader, we're going to kill 50 other innocent people, but it's worth it. Well, that's a utilitarian ethical point of view, that it's worth killing those other innocent 50 people to make sure you get that one Taliban leader, right?
Is there like an upper limit to that? Like, is there like a value weighing system for that?
No,
It's gotta be person to person. I know.
yeah, it's.
Because there is a personal.
So that would upset
section.
I
someone.
mean, there's Osama bin Laden hiding behind a young woman.
Shoot
Did
away
the SEAL
people.
team just shoot Osama? No, they shot the woman too. Right?
That I didn't hear.
No,
No.
you didn't hear it, or you didn't know that that was the
Not
case.
know that, I didn't know that was the case.
Uh,
I heard about something like that. It was,
yeah.
I mean,
She's
I
in the
would
room
think
with him or something?
everyone in our
He was
society
hiding
would
behind
think
her,
that was
but-
morally just to be able to sacrifice the life of
Choose your-
one person.
Did he have a
for-
gun though?
choose your friends a little
No,
more
he did
wisely.
not.
Okay, so they unnecessarily killed someone.
Brainwashed.
Well, I mean, he
Right.
probably had like a knife or something.
Because
There's
they
no
could help,
way-
if he stabbed her, I mean, they could still save her if there's a medic.
They were in a hurry.
They were in a hurry, they needed to get some McDonald's afterwards.
Yeah, I think the one possibility was capturing them and bringing them back, which
They didn't wanna do that.
actually I think they could have done that actually, and just decided not to tell us that they've still got him and he's in Guantanamo or something.
Yeah, it would be smart to let that be known, take out.
Yeah. I know enough about intelligence to know that the intelligence community doesn't tell everybody everything.
Really?
Sorry. In fact, most of the reason that they don't is because it's so dang boring. Bore the heck out of everybody to hear all of that stuff. You read an awful lot. Routine. Just reading. I'm doing this because I'm flipping through the pages.
Yeah.
I used to have a pencil to use. Somehow, I can't picture how I did it, but because they were connected sheets. So as long as you had it on the opposite page, it stayed in them so that you could just keep flipping the pages with the pencil.
You were a linguist, right?
Yes.
Listening to Russians talk,
Well,
chatter.
I was a Russian linguist, but also a German linguist. So
So you're listening to East Germans talk.
whatever. Yeah.
Well, it's 20 years after.
It was a
that.
good job back then. You know, it's gone now, I'm sure. I don't know what people do now, but
Sign language. That's what everyone's.
you could still join the military and become a linguist. They will pay you to be, of course, in the military, give you rank, and at the same time send you to school for a year, so you learn a language that then
Looking for Mandarin,
you get to keep.
Korean,
You know,
Arabic.
when I retired from the Army, they'd say, "Okay, give us the Russian back now." You know. No, you can't do that. Right? You get to keep it, although use it or lose it, right? And so, я еще надо говорить по-русски каждый день, or I lose it. You know, that's so consequential. So this is a problem, of course, for their ethics. If we're comparing ethical systems, a good quality associated with deontology, which is those folks that are certain, is that they argue that you should never use an individual as a means to an end. Seems like it's not a necessary aspect of deontology, but that's typically associated with deontology. Whereas consequentialists, utilitarians, can like experiment on people. You know, okay, we're experimenting on these 100 people. We're not even telling them we're doing it, right? But you know what? If we learn something that'll save 1 million people, that's clearly worth it, right? Plus, I'm getting good money, you know, for doing the experiment, says the doctors, right? So you can imagine there's an awful lot of medical stuff that does that. Experimenting on rabbits, you know, to see if a new cosmetic will hurt your eyes. You know, I mean the things they do to rabbits because they figure, well, rabbits have no vote, right? But should we be doing that to rabbits?
Yeah.
Eventually, our our ethics might evolve to the point where we realize we shouldn't have been doing that to rabbits, and we'll feel absolutely horrible that our ancestors treated rabbits and chickens.
Do it to life sentence prisoners instead.
That's, yeah, why not? After all, they deserved it, whereas rabbits didn't do anything to deserve
Use your toes.
that kind of mistreatment.
A lot of those things were back, those are physiological differences and problems that
Eventually,
have
we're
with
going to
the
be able to
person.
grow meat in vats.
Yeah.
How appetizing.
Well, yeah, it'll be absolutely perfect.
There you
Because
have it.
they'll-
Perfect
they'll-
meat.
Exactly what kind of
Soft,
flavor
not
would you
sweet.
like? You know, you could have this fat or this fat, or you know, you'll have your favorite by number. You know, you'll
Smoking
plug it in, and
Chipotle.
you know you'll want, and it'll be also no toxins and all the other things that you would get from meat that's out in the field, plus all the
Yeah, I like my
The
meat to have
antibiotics and
chemicals of
stuff.
cyanide.
This circles
meat
back
growing
around-
in vats aren't going to need antibiotics, you know, to keep it from getting ill.
Yeah.
Back around to the whole bees issue, like how diverse are the flowers that the bees are making their honeys from, while we have vast swaths of them dying out because of the,
The
you know,
the
lack of
poisons that
diversity.
they put on the flowers.
And, that and the fact that it's the variety of flowers, like they used to use honey in some cultures as an antibiotic, like an ointment. You know, it's the only thing that the bees eat. But now there's
Well,
so
like,
few.
a lot of the flowers that are offered for sale here already have chemicals added to the roots or something so that the flowers will be healthier, but that also will kill the bees that eat them, or that don't eat, I mean, you know, that harvest them.
Because there's no inadequate testing of, you know, impact. It's a systemic issue. That
They've
whole
been using
systemic
it all
issue.
over the world.
The pace of life and the information age has no time for issues such as that.
It's an interesting article I read the other day that argued that one of the periods of life being almost wiped out on the earth might have happened because plants ended up growing so well in the oceans that they used up all of the oxygen and killed all of the fish and prevented life on. That was before there were continents. It was just the one continent. So there's an argument that the atmosphere was changed so that the life forms that did exist couldn't keep up because plants literally changed it and prevented them from living. Because the plants flourished so well. Because of global warming, actually. So that kind of...
That's why they predicted the insects were so large.
Yeah, that'd have been fun.
So, another aspect... How much time? Are we almost done?
7 minutes.
Okay, let me talk real quickly about Mill's methods. Mill was a significant philosopher, among the most important of the British philosophers, not just for his ethical theory and his being a utilitarian, but also for his logic. It seems odd, but at the time, people thought the craziest things because science hadn't developed good inductive methods. If you notice that the industrialization period where science really blossomed occurred at the same time as John Stuart Mill, you realize that Mill added some tools to the scientific community that they simply didn't have. These are referred to as Mill's methods, and they're basically, when you're doing experiments, one of the things that you should notice is if there's agreement between cause and effect. If after experiment, the same kind of things are present and result in these effects, these effects happen, then you have agreement, both the cause and the effect, go together. If, on the other hand, when you're looking at a situation you don't have that particular cause and you don't have that effect, that would be difference. And the strongest of those would be the joint method of agreement and difference, because obviously what you're trying to figure out is what exactly really causes something, right? Concomitant variations is when you notice that, so carbon in the atmosphere goes up, global warming goes up. Carbon goes down, global warming goes down. Whoa, must be concomitant variations. Do the same thing with weather, all sorts of things, social things, all kinds of things, concomitant variations. Replicability and controls. At the time, people thought life spontaneously appeared. If you had a wet or a damp shirt with a food source nearby, poof, instant baby mice would show up in the shirt. Not because there were parent mice that came to harvest the food and suck. It was like poof, a miracle, right?
Lead out, poof,
What if we put a box over the shirt and the food source and see if mice show up? And guess what? They didn't. So you need parent mice in order to get baby mice. So life isn't, spontaneous. So replicability and controls. You have to have controls over the experiments. Plus, the replicability part is where others have to be able to replicate your experiment to verify that it's actually happening that way. So, good quiz question, I suppose, is, do you feel like you'd rather be a happy pig
Or a sad man.
or
A sad
dissatisfied human being?
A sad man. I prefer
A dissatisfied Socrates or
a
a satisfied fool, a happy fool. Discuss. And have a great spring break. Hopefully you'll have lots of interesting things to do.
What was that? I'm sorry, I missed that question.
So that's the famous quote. There's the quote up here, Adam.
Is it better to be a human than a dissatisfied what?
Pig. A dissatisfied human or a happy pig? Which would you rather be?
What's the difference?
Enjoy, be safe, come back. Not that much of the semester left.
So I didn't realize exam 2 was due today.
You can catch up. No problem. I don't really do the math to try to figure out how much points I should.
I went on the syllabus today to see what I needed to read, so I could read it. And I saw exam 2 due, and I was like, I have an hour to do that, and I'm like, yeah, I saw that.
Cognitive math. Pretty cool idea. 'Cause it gives you kind of a
Visualization
visual.
is probably the easiest way to be able
I could fill in my, once I got the outlines here, then I can, and my, birth is over here, suicide is down here, confused Democrats are over here.
I'm so
Because
sad.
they believe in science, uncertainty, but we should help the community. So I have no idea how to help everybody, but I want to help everybody. Whereas a more conservative would be up here. I know exactly how to help everybody. They might not like it.
So I came in to finish. Of course, I came to class. Then I got to class. I'm gonna finish my exam, and I locked myself out of my computer as soon as I get to this classroom. So,
Will you be able to figure out how to get back in?
yes, but it requires me to be very uncomfortable and waste about another 2 gallons of gas in travel expenses to go grab a way to get into the computer.